Cole says to Alicia, I thought you died in the fire too.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning,
Mm-hmm.
because Madison's dead.
Madison's
She's dead. She's so dead.
Cole saw her burn up.
Burn up to a crisp cold. Cole saw it firsthand and said, oh, I'll find Alicia for her sake because I know Madison's dead. Alicia still might be alive out there somewhere. High five.
Thank you, Cole. Thank you, Cole.
Confirmed. Theory confirmed. Brian Castillo, you can eat my shit.
Oh, don't be mean to Brian.
I'm kidding.
Don't you be mean to Brian.
The sad part is I'm just like Brian. I'm literally just like Brian. I want Madison to come back.
Really?
I literally want Madison. I do.
Why?
I just want it. I want all the pieces to line up properly.
No.
I want it to line up properly.
No. We're going into overtime for this shit.
What's up, Deadheads? It's Brian Castrillo, and Fear the Walking Dead is back. It is the final season, and I just seen season 8, episode 1. Remember what they took from you, and let's talk about it. But before we get into that, I gotta say how excited I am for Madison Clark to be back. I mean, I was ecstatic when I got to see her in the final episode of season 7, but now that she's back as a main character, I am so excited. In my opinion, she is one of the best characters, if not the best, in the entire series of Fear the Walking Dead. Excuse me. Of course, Daniel Salazar is my favorite. I just like his background. I like what he's been through. But Madison Clark is a phenomenal character played by an amazing actress, and she is the epitome of what a parent will do to, and what they're willing to do in order to save their child or a family member. And when you look at her background, she of course is a flawed character, but she is quite the badass. And of course, season 1 through 3 are my favorite seasons, but I do love the series as a whole. But there is just something special about seasons 1 through 3. Hopefully, maybe we'll get to see Keltaka Walker in this. He's another favorite from those seasons. But Madison Clark has just been an amazing character. I love her story. I love what she's been through from the beginning of the apocalypse to now, what she's had to go through, of course, learning about Nick now and Alicia. But let's get into this episode. Now, this episode clearly has a bird or avian theme, and that has to have a connection to Madison Clark to some degree. Now, of course, if you go all the way back to the episode titled Amina, that of course is the bird that Nick and Alicia took care of, and Madison spoke about this with Al. And then of course you go to the to the end of the last season, where we had that bird that Alicia was following that was leading her to Victor Strand and of course Madison Clark, and everything is leading to that. And now in this episode we have, I guess, nicknames for these people, because they are teaching them not to go by their names anymore. They just want them to have just, I guess, titles, and they're calling them birds. For example, Madison Clark is called a lark, a type of bird. All the children that are caught are called fledglings, which is another avian term for basically birds before they leave the nest. And of course, Mo, who is the daughter of Grace and Morgan, she is called Wren, another bird. And Morgan was called a nightingale. Now, I wasn't sure if I got Grace's nickname. If you guys know it, let me know in the comments, because I'm pretty sure she's probably a bird too. But this clearly has a avian theme, and I think this is going to be crucial into figuring out the pieces to these puzzles and how they're going to fit together. Now, I have seen the negative reaction by some in this, and I think if I was to speak on at least those who are objective in their criticism of the stories, I think a lot of that entails with the lack of their favorite characters within this episode, and what they're upset about. And of course, losing Alicia Clark is huge, and I understand that. And if you go back to a lot of these seasons, especially some of the the more recent seasons, a lot of our favorite characters that we all love did not necessarily get the screen time that maybe we would have loved them to get. And I think that is where a lot of the criticism is coming from. But that being said, I think this episode was smart to focus in on Morgan, Madison, Grace, and of course Mo, and Padre as a whole, because we had to learn what was going on. Because if you look at the last episode, we saw Morgan and Madison. They were heading off with some of these I guess troopers or military, if you will, heading towards this island, named Padre. Whether it's a place or a person, that's what what we're learning about. And they're heading off to this island. Now, also speaking to Madison, as excited as I am to have her back, and she's a fantastic character, I didn't want her back if the story wasn't right, because to me, story trumps characters. The story has got to be good. It has to make sense in what they're doing, and it just has to flow good within the story that they're trying to build. And I do believe that this first episode, it would not have made sense if we just dumped all of our characters back in there, especially where we left off at the end of season 7, and where Padre is becoming a theme. We've been leading up to Padre, and of course I mentioned the avian theme that has been leading up as well in the previous season. It would only make sense to focus on at least these characters right now. Now, one of the conversations that was made in this is they were asking, where is everybody? Where they were all on rafts, what happened to them? Of course, we remember Alicia, she went off on her own and she was still sick. At least we thought she was. And then everybody else went on rafts. But one of the key things that they mentioned when Madison was speaking with Morgan is, where was Victor Strand? And that was the one answer that nobody knew. And he just kind of, I guess, disappeared, while everybody else, they knew they were on rafts, didn't quite know where they were. And I believe that is intentional. They're probably connected with Padre, or at least maybe some of them escaped. But Madison, even though she was doing all this stuff for them, she seems to, be at least blinded by what's going on. Because, like I said, they were blindfolded going in there, and they teach them to basically forget their name and remember their new title, which we're going by the avian theme. Again, Madison is Lark. Morgan, as a collector, was Nightingale. And, of course, Mo was Wren. But also, they're also considered fledglings. So they want them to give up their identity, which I believe that this is probably the precursor to the CRM, the Civic Republic Military. I think they're training them to be soldiers and just forget who they are, forget their identity. And we see a sort of, they want them to have community over individualism, and basically saying that is the greater good, which is sure as hell a nod, or at least some sort of a similar entity to what the Civic Republic military is. And we're going to get more into that as we go. Now, we see them on the island in the beginning. We know that there's been somewhat of a 7-year time jump. We know that Madison tried to help Morgan and Mo escape 7 years ago, but something went wrong, and we don't know what happened to Morgan. At least at this point, we figure it out. But so now we're in a 7-year time jump. We got Mo. She's a lot older now, from when we last seen her. I'm not quite sure on her exact age, but a 7-year time jump from the point of when they tried to escape. And I'm not sure how close we are to The Walking Dead now, but it's got to be, the timelines have got to be, a lot closer now, as to, if they're probably not exactly, maybe like a couple years apart, but I'm not sure exactly. Maybe you guys might know. But yeah, we see them training these children, or fledglings as they call them, in basically how to be soldiers. And interestingly, they're training them in the same weaponry that Morgan uses, which I just thought that was interesting, because all the fledglings or children, that's what they were teaching them. They were teaching them how to make bullets. They were teaching them all kinds of stuff, but all of it was geared towards military warfare. But eventually, because Mo, or Wren, as her name goes by, she's having these flashbacks of whatever happened, this 7 years ago. And she finds Madison and asks her to train her, which eventually Madison gets out. And And Madison at this point looks rough, and it almost looks like she's been drugged or something. You know, she got the thing on her arms, which we later find out that it wasn't drugs, but they're actually have been trying to take blood from her. And I guess once a week, they said they take blood from her, which is interesting. And I'm going to come back to that, because why do they want her blood? But eventually they're escaping and they're going in the swamp, which in my opinion, this episode the cinematography was fantastic. The visual effects, the swamp was an amazing scene. I love the sight. The walkers were badass, and just really tense moments. And I felt the pacing was really good in this episode. But we get to somewhat of a houseboat, and, they're trying to escape, Padre, these walkers, and they come to a houseboat. And this is where I have questions. Now, they get in this houseboat, and we see that Mo is like, rubbing off this dirt or grime or whatever off the wall. And we see the names Dwayne, Jenny, and King County. Of course, King County is where he used to live back in Georgia. So there's clearly, we're going to probably head back to Georgia, and eventually connect up to The Walking Dead, whatever characters survive. But my question is why would Morgan, at this point in his story, would he be writing Dwayne, Jenny, his ex-wife, and King County? I feel like he's gone past clear, but why would he be, unless someone was invoking this in him? Because we've seen a scene where, when Morgan was initially caught, where Morgan said, "I know who you are," and they basically said that they knew who he was too. So if I am right about the CRM and they know who he is, there's only one person over there that would know who Morgan is, and that's got to be Rick Grimes. Now, I don't know how this connects or why, but that's the only connection I can think of. Why would he have these names on the wall? I'm very confused at that. But I do believe this is the beginning of the CRM. They train people to basically forget who they are and just have loyalty to the group while they're training them to be soldiers. This seems very Civic Republic military. And if you remember the military soldiers, they were very military over everything else. They did not really care. They didn't care about their own well-beings, just loyalty, which is what they appear to be training them. So I believe this is very early Civic Republic military, or Civic Republic training their military. And so I just find that interesting that those names, Dwayne, Jenny, and King County, were on there. And why? So maybe Rick mentioned Morgan to these people who got that information and who knows? I don't know. That's just like widely thrown. But why those names are on there at this point in Morgan's story does not make sense, unless there is that connection with the Civic Republic. But I digress. But eventually they have to leave, and you got Madison. She's trapped as they're basically pulling the houseboat down. And if you're watching this episode, like with all these flashbacks, all I can think of is Grace must have died in this, 7 years ago. And then you see a walker that has dark hair walking towards Mo, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is that her? But then all of a sudden Grace comes in like a badass, shooting saving Madison, saving Mo, saving Morgan. And probably, in my opinion, that was just probably now my favorite Grace scene. That was just so badass. She came in like a soldier, and I absolutely love that. Still wondering what her bird nickname is. They may have said it and I just could not hear it, but eventually she tells her that she's her mother, Mo, and Morgan is her dad. But the theme that they're having is that she's better off with with basically Padre. But why? Now that they're all together, I'm thinking at first, like in my head, I was thinking maybe they got Grace. That's why Morgan's, doing this, because he's afraid they're going to hurt her. But now Grace, Morgan, and their daughter are there. But What do they have over them? I don't know, but it seems like they have some sort of hold on them as to why, especially Morgan. Morgan is not the type that is going to just say, oh, okay, yeah, whatever, because he does care about his own people. So I'm curious as to what they may have over them. Eventually they do catch up with them, and because Grace called it in. And when they do eventually take her, one of the things that Morgan says is like, well, at least we got to see her. And then Grace is like, yeah, that's the hard part, having to see her. So there's clearly some sort of hold over them. As to what that is, I don't know. But there's some sort of information that we're not being divulged at this time. Now, another interesting thing about the avian thing is next title is, it's titled Blue Jay, and I have a feeling that may be related to Victor Strand. I think we're going to figure out where Victor Strand went at this point in this next episode, and he may be actually Blue Jay, because when that person on the speaker was speaking like, we know who you are. Clearly they're changing the voice, although that voice does sound very similar. Like, I thought it sounds like Teddy, but I don't know that he's dead. There's no way he can be alive. But they're clearly changing the voice to sound different in there. And I'm wondering if possibly this could be Victor. Now, if you go back to, I believe it was season 6, when Victor was talking to Alicia, one of the things he was saying to her is that basically he was saying how he needs, her to be okay, because she basically makes, based on a conversation he had with Daniel, where he said that he was told to just remember who you were, and who he was is very vital to having Alicia. Now, one of the things he said to Alicia also is that he has to do things that maybe are not morally right or ethical, but he is going to do something. Remember, Alicia was pissed off. He was basically telling her to get lost at this point, and he was doing his own thing. What if this whole thing where he was talking about building something better or whatever he was behind is this whole start of Padre? And what if he is, maybe the head of Padre? And this was, his group where he was starting or helping start with the CRM. And this was like his section that he was over, that he was helping build. And what if, because why would they know Morgan? I don't understand why they would know him, but that's what I was thinking. And of course they mentioned that Victor Strand was missing and nobody knows where he is. And of course Madison, if she saw him, she would know, but it would make sense if it was Victor that he would not make himself seen. That's why this person is hidden behind a speaker. But now let's get into something else. Like when you looked at his arm, Madison Clark's arm, it's all bruised, which when I was in the military and when I went to what's called MEPS, they have to draw your blood. And the lady left it like kind of hanging in there, and she pulled it out kind of quick or whatever, and it left my arm bruised, which is very similar to what Madison Clark's arm is. And at first I thought they were drugging her just by the way she looked, but they said that they were taking her blood. Why would they want Madison's blood every week? Unless that blood is being used to help save Alicia Clark. Because they did mention that we still have use for you when they took Madison. What if that blood was going to help save Alicia Clark? And they told her that her children was still alive, or at least that's what they were saying. But what if they actually got Alicia and that's what they were using her blood for? Just kind of a random thought, but I'm throwing it out there. But what did you guys think about this episode? I liked it. I thought it was a good story. I thought everything flowed good. The pacing was good. The special effects are great. The cinematography was good. The swamp scene was amazing. I absolutely loved it. I was trying to focus in on some of the chalkboard thing that they were teaching them. I couldn't really see it that well on my TV. And then just some of the the signs and different things that we saw. But overall, I thought this was a good start to what possibly could be next. I have really no qualms about the way the story unfolded in this episode. But what did you guys think? What were your favorite parts? Why didn't you like it? And if it's because your favorite character's in there, I get it. I understand. You know, I want my favorite characters. I miss Daniel Salazar, and Daniel better be good. But I am worried for Daniel Salazar, just knowing who he is and what he's been through and what could be next for him. I could see him doing a hero type thing. But anyways, what do you guys think about it? Let's talk about it. Hit me up in the comments, not comics, but yeah, let's talk about it. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. Love you guys, and we'll see you in the Blue Jay.